had somehow fallen into the pit and would never be seen again unless rescued. Fernie's letter concluded with the news that she'd taken Harrington the cat and joined the house's one somewhat human resident, a strange boy named Gustav Gloom, on an expedition with exactly that purpose in mind. Fernie had written all of this in just a couple of pages, rushing through a complicated story that probably would have required 3 full-length illustrated books to tell, and still left a lot unexplained. Mrs. Watt wasn't sure that further details would have rendered the story any more comprehensible, but they might have helped. When there's a pile of questions fighting to be asked, the first one to escape is sometimes the best. Mrs. Watt wondered out loud, exactly how old is this letter anyway? A voice that sounded just like Fernie's replied, "Fernie wrote it about 8 days ago." While it struck Mrs. Watt as distinctly odd that Fernie would refer to herself using her own name, the relief she felt that this nonsense about shadow houses and dark countries was all over and done with was overwhelming. She spun in her chair, a broad smile on her face. Then she faltered. The room was inhabited by shadows. Not the kind of shadows that were normally present in the corners of rooms, but actual active presences who had been standing around behind Mrs. Watt, waiting for her to finish reading Fernie's letter. One was a hulking figure in a tuxedo, another a lanky man wearing a striped suit and flat straw hat, and a third looked enough like Fernie to make Mrs. Watt's heart ache. She had Fernie's eyes, and Fernie's nose, and Fernie's chin, and pretty much everything else Fernie had except for the bright red hair, which wasn't to say that this girl was bald, only that her hair looked more like what red hair looks like in black and white photographs. It would have been all too tempting for Mrs. Watt to still believe that this actually was Fernie in some way. But Mrs. Watt was an attentive and loving mother in between her frequent expeditions, and she could tell from the way the little girl carried herself that she was not Fernie at all, but a different person who just happened to look like her. Mrs. Watt could only say so. "You're not Fernie."
"I didn't say I was," the little girl shadow replied.
"But you talk like her. You have her voice."
"I'm her shadow. How else would you expect me to sound?"
Mrs. Watt, who had seen her share of astonishing sights, had not seen anything quite this astonishing for as far back as she could remember. "I didn't expect you to have a voice at all." The shadow girl sniffed.
"All shadows have voices, but we just don't speak that much around people from the world of light."
Mrs. Watt didn't know what to say. I'm sorry?" The hulking figure rolled his eyes.
"That's exactly the kind of answer that makes flesh and blood people so often not worth my valuable time."
"You'll have to forgive Hives," said the shadow of the man in the striped suit and straw hat. "He's the Gloom house's terrible butler. It's his job to always be rude to the people who need his help." "He seems to be awfully good at it," Mrs. Watt noted.
"I'm a professional,"
sniffed Hives. "As for me," said the man in the straw hat, "I'm the shadow of a fellow named Mr. Notes, who last I checked wasn't a very nice man at all, but I don't follow him around anymore, and I'm trying to be a much more pleasant person. I hope we'll be good friends." One of the many pressing questions piling up in Mrs. Watt's head, so deep by now that it was a wonder she had room to think at all, squirmed out from underneath. She addressed it to the shadow girl. "If you're Fernie's shadow, aren't you supposed to be with her?"
"I'm a free being. I can be wherever I want to be."
"But you're usually with her, aren't you?"
"Yes,"
Fernie's shadow said.